You ever seen a woman in designer heels try to outrun a 1,500-pound bull? Yeah, I have. Twice, in one afternoon. And I'll tell you right now, nothing clears out an HOA board meeting faster than a couple of full-grown Herefords snorting down the aisle while smooth jazz blares from a Bluetooth speaker someone forgot to turn off. Folding chairs went flying, people screamed, and at the center of the chaos, standing as calm as sunrise by the barn door with a padlock in one hand and his old, dented thermos in the other, was my grandfather, Walter Briggs. He just gave me a nod through the dusty window as Sandra Merriweather, queen of the HOA, shrieked that someone needed to call 911 because, in her words, these cows are not community approved. He took a slow sip of his coffee, turned that key in the lock, click, and those bulls, Donut and Tank, gave the most satisfied snorts you've ever heard. The HOA lost their minds. And that, if you ever get asked at a trivia night, is how the Maple Hollow Meadows Spring Social became the only neighborhood event in county history that needed both an ambulance and a livestock trailer. My name's Elliot Briggs, by the way, and technically, yeah, I own the place, 10 acres and a stubborn legacy, just outside Clover Run, which is the kind of town where folks still wave when they drive by and gossip travels faster than any cable internet ever will. I work remote these days, a data analyst, buried in numbers most hours, living in the same hoodie, drinking enough coffee to power a small generator. But the real story here, that's the land. It's been in the family for generations, older than some states, with a creaky farmhouse, a barn that's been rebuilt more times than my pickup, and a patch of pasture for Grandpa's bulls. Grandpa's 78, runs on caffeine and grit, and if he's not yelling at something with hooves, he's fixing something that squeaks. Everything went sideways when sprawl crept up behind us. The Maple Hollow Meadows subdivision dropped right behind our back fence, all copy-paste houses and granite kitchens, run by people who say we when they mean the HOA. Leading the charge was Sandra, who drives a white SUV with seats wider than her smile and thinks property values is a holy phrase. She showed up the week they finished their fancy sign, teetering on gravel and heels, brandishing a clipboard. "We're going to be such good neighbors," she chirped, all teeth, no soul. "Our HOA is very proactive about aesthetics." Grandpa didn't miss a beat. "We've been proactive about cows since before your houses had plumbing." That was it, the spark, game on. Sandra started slow, complaints about barnyard odors, snippy grocery store comments about our rustic clutter, and passive-aggressive flyers in our mailbox about modernizing the community. We laughed it off until the letter arrived on HOA letterhead. Notice of Community Alignment Opportunity. Sounded harmless, right? But nope. Turns out the Maple Hollow Meadows HOA would be utilizing the Briggs outbuilding. That's our barn, mind you, as their event venue for the spring social, since it was, according to Sandra, the only suitably picturesque structure within reasonable proximity. They didn't ask. They just told us. Down at the bottom, in neat little cursive. "We're sure you understand. Sandra Merriweather, President." I waved that letter in Grandpa's face. They can't do this, right? He read it over real slow, glasses perched on his nose, then looked at me. "Son, they got two problems. 1, that barn isn't theirs. 2, they wrote this down." I suggested a lawyer. Grandpa had a different idea. Let him try. You can't teach respect with words, but cows? Cows teach consequences. I thought he was joking. He was not. The day of the event, we slapped a big hand-painted sign on the gate. Private property, no entry, not affiliated with Maple Hollow Meadows HOA. 9 o'clock sharp. 2 board members showed up, clipboards waving. "Sandra cleared it with the county," one said. "Chipper as a squirrel." Grandpa walked out, coffee steaming. "County doesn't own my barn. You turn around, we won't have a problem." They didn't turn around. They went home, fired off an email. "Per our interpretation of easement and adjacency laws, your barn is considered an aesthetic asset." Grandpa snorted, went to check the bulls. That night, all casual, he told me to make sure the side barn door worked and not to park by the fence on Saturday. "Why?" I asked. "Saturday's a good day for bulls to stretch their legs." Saturday arrived like a tornado with a pastel color scheme. SUVs and crossovers lining the road, folding chairs, bar carts, fairy lights. Not a single person knocked. Not a single one asked permission. They just marched in, rolled out their cheese boards, and hung a banner, Maple Hollow Meadows Spring Social. I watched from the kitchen, mug halfway to my mouth. They're actually doing it, I muttered. Grandpa didn't even look up, tightening a gate latch. Been doing stupid things since they moved in. Consistency's important. While they strung up lights and draped Sandra's $8 crackers across hay bales, Grandpa quietly moved his 3 bulls, Donut, Tank, and Pickles, into the small pasture that connects to the back of the barn by a sliding door nobody ever uses. The bulls were watching, stomping, tails flicking, curious about all the excitement. "Grandpa," I whispered, "what are you planning?" He shrugged. "City folks want to occupy a working barn. They can meet the workers." By noon, the party was in full swing, Sandra on a hay bale giving a speech about rural charm integration, while she ate cheese off a manure fork she covered with a lace napkin. Then, a county sheriff's SUV pulled up. My stomach dropped. "They call the cops on us," I said. The deputy, hat low, walked over. "You Elliot Briggs? Got a complaint about livestock posing a community hazard." Grandpa made a noise. "Let me guess who Anonymous is." The deputy cut right to the chase. "Did you invite them onto your property?" "Nope," I said, showing him the HOA letter and a picture of our sign. "So they trespassed, then called us about your cows?" Grandpa piped up. "Bulls." The deputy grinned. "You want to press charges?" Grandpa's grin was slow. "Not yet. I figure they deserve a teachable moment first." The deputy scratched his chin. "Anybody gonna get really hurt?" "Just their feelings and those fancy shoes." The deputy tipped his hat. "Didn't see a thing. But if you lock your barn, make sure you've got it on camera." Grandpa's grin got even wider. So now we had official silence. A barn full of HOA party guests, 3 restless bulls, and the go-ahead to teach a little lesson. We waited until they were fully settled, buffets spread, acoustic music playing, Sandra in campaign mode handing out flyers about new paint color rules. Grandpa slipped out the back. I followed, nerves jangling. He stopped by the big sliding barn door. "You like them acting like they own it?" he asked. "Nope." "You like them calling the law while trespassing?" "Nope." He just nodded. "Let the boys say hello." He slid open the back gate a crack. The bulls caught the scent of food and people, and you could see it in their eyes. Bulls are simple. They go where the action is. Grandpa and I circled to the front, acting casual as party guests refill their plates. Inside, Donut ambled in. I was echoing. Someone screamed, "Is that a cow?" Sandra, frazzled, snapped, "It's part of the authentic rural experience." But then Donut stepped all the way in, followed by Tank and Pickles, all snorting, wide-eyed, tails flicking at the sight of balloons and a cheese board. Music cut off, and what followed was chaos. Hay bales tipped, plates dropped, people scrambled behind tables, someone shrieked about horns, which, fair enough, was accurate. Grandpa strolled over to the main sliding doors. "You recording?" he asked. I held up my phone. "Yep." He slid the barn doors shut, wrapped a chain around the handles, and padlocked it with a calm click. From inside, panic. "Who locked us in?" "Call 911. They're eating the pasta salad." Grandpa just leaned against the frame, sipping his coffee, cool as a winter pond. "You think that's enough?" I asked. "Give 'em 30 minutes, Grandpa said. "They'll figure out whose barn it is." And sure enough, half an hour later, the real cavalry arrived, another sheriff's car, county animal control, and, because the universe has a sense of humor, a local news van. Someone had called 911 and said they were being held hostage in a barn with dangerous livestock by a hostile farmer. The same deputy stepped out, took in the scene. HOA members screaming from windows, bulls nosing around decorations, fairy lights flickering. "Mr. Briggs," he called, keeping it steady. "Are your animals attacking?" Grandpa shrugged. "They're just walking around. This is their barn." The party came to them. From inside, Sandra shrieked, "You're endangering us." The deputy raised his voice. "Ma'am, you're trespassing." "We already established that." She tried to pivot. "We have a community right to this space." Animal control peeked in, started laughing. "They're not charging, they're just existing. Looks like your folks are more dangerous to themselves than the bulls are." The news crew was rolling, reporter with perfect hair whispering, "This is gold." The deputy turned to Grandpa. "You want to unlock that door now?" Grandpa nodded. "Yeah, I think the lesson's sunk in." He unlocked the doors. Inside looked like a home magazine after a tornado. Hay everywhere, decorations wrecked, people stumbling out covered in regret. One guy in a pastel polo had hoof prints on his blazer. Sandra stormed out last. She was muddy, pearls twisted, hair in full meltdown mode. "This is outrageous," she screamed. "He locked us in there with wild animals." Grandpa took a sip. "They're not wild, they're registered. Got paperwork if you want to see it." The deputy stepped in stern. "You entered his barn without permission, ignored written notice, then tried to get him in trouble for his own livestock." Sandra tried to argue. He cut her off. "Ma'am, you and your board are formally trespassed from this property. Any future entry will mean arrest." The reporter perked up. "Can you say that again for the camera?" HOA board members looked like they wanted to crawl into the ground. Sandra's face turned a shade you only see on tropical birds. "This will destroy our property values," she wailed. The reporter turned to Grandpa. "What do you say to that?" Grandpa looked straight at the camera. "If your property values are scared of cows, you've got bigger problems than me." That clip hit the evening news, and the internet, being the internet, did its thing. Suddenly, everywhere you looked, HOA hijacks barn, gets trapped with bulls, sheriff sides with farmer. You could practically hear Sandra's world collapsing in real time. Fallout was quick. 3 board members resigned. 2 homeowners started a petition to recall Sandra as president, and the county sent a reminder that HOA power stops at the subdivision line. The state HOA oversight agency opened an investigation after neighbors admitted Sandra had lied about her authority over adjacent properties. At the next HOA meeting, Sandra tried to stage a comeback. "We must not let this unfortunate incident undermine our vision." She barely got through her speech before a resident cranked up the viral news clip on their phone full volume. The recall vote wasn't even close. Sandra Merriweather was removed as president, banned from serving on the board for 5 years due to, you can't make this up, behavioral and leadership concerns. That's HOA 4, you're the problem. When the vote was announced, Sandra just stood there, frozen, pale, mouth open as the room erupted in relieved applause. I guess everyone gets humbled, sooner or later, sometimes by neighbors, sometimes by bulls. So here's my question to you, was Grandpa right? Did they deserve a lesson, or was it too much? Where's the line between justice and revenge when it comes to standing your ground? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me your wildest HOA story, or where you draw that line. And hey, if you enjoyed this circus, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and let's keep the conversation going, because out here, you never know when the next showdown's coming down the fence line.